I have 2 points in particular, my own experience. I was 5.5 days without power. But in full disclosure, I have to say my husband and I both work from our home. We earn our income from our home, and if the power is out, we have a significant loss of income. After several years of losing power and multiple day outages, last year we did purchase a generator. We purchased a small generator, and it generates a small office that we have off of our home. But the living quarters does not have the generator. I have 2 points in particular regarding my experience of being without the power for that long. One is actually as an elected official, I was on the conference calls daily at 2 o'clock that PEPCO would have with the government officials. And with only a few exceptions, I would say that those calls were pretty worthless and very time-consuming, and there was nothing on them that I couldn't hear on the 11 o'clock news. But I did ask a question. It was on July 2nd. I asked a question. I said, in light of the current economy and in light of the poor reliability, the history of PEPCO's poor reliability, would you consider refraining from temporarily increasing our rates after this extended outage? There was silence, and the call was referred to Mr. Ray Borland, who I believe was with PEPCO Holdings, came on the line. And he said, Ms. Pickar, PEPCO would never recoup its rates or try to recoup its profits after an outage. And I said, Mr. Borland, and there were many witnesses to this conversation. I said, Mr. Borland, including, I might say, county council members, said, Mr. Borland, maybe I'm using the wrong terminology. Maybe I just don't have it right, because I thought in the past this had happened. He said, absolutely no. So what I'm speaking to is the culture of PEPCO. I think the pomp, the arrogance, the self-aggrandizement, particularly through their recent ads, is a very expensive rhetoric. It's a very insulting rhetoric, and I also find it quite deceptive. And I think this comment from Mr. Borland back to me was certainly an example of this deceptive nature of the culture. And for Mr. Borland, I would guess that he was smart enough to understand the gist of what I was saying. And if he wasn't, he shouldn't have been in his position. The second comment I have is that during this outage, even more than the others, I think it was just cumulative, I got very frightened. I started feeling the powerlessness at many different levels. I was aware that in March 2011 that our state had before it, this was the last time we had any major legislation doing with reliability in front of the state Senate and House. And there was an amendment proposed that March by Senator Frosch, and that amendment would have at least allowed a little bit more control of the behavior of PEPCO after an outage. That amendment was defeated, and the vote was 22-22. Of the 22 no votes, 15 of those senators accepted PAC contributions from either PEPCO, from Potomac Edison, from Southern Maryland. And although that's very legal, it's swarmy, and it made me think, my goodness, this utility company, this monopoly, the only thing I was counting on our legislative body to protect us from this monopoly, but this monopoly is actually influencing them with their money. Who can I turn to but the Public Service Commission? And I know that you're appointed by the governor, and I looked at the governor's contributions, and there were no PAC contributions, and I was glad, at least from what I saw, I was glad of that. But I scratched a little farther, and lo and behold, there's Joseph Rigby. In the last Martin O'Malley campaign, he gave $4,000, which he is entitled to do. He gave it as an individual, rather the CEO and chairman of the board of PEPCO Holdings. But again, it doesn't smell good, and it was an uncomfortable feeling. So we're left you know, I'm now looking at you guys. It was July 23rd. We still didn't have power. I read in the Washington Post, and I admire you, Chairman Nazarian, for your honesty. It was a little window of honesty there among a lot of deception all around us, where you said, well, the commission has probably failed to recognize or failed to hear the need for the comprehensive reliability changes in the utilities. And I thought, oh my gosh, they haven't listened to us. You are the last thing that we could depend on to protect us and to keep us from being victims. And I felt like you hadn't listened. I have no reason to think that you're in any way dishonest. I know you're very well educated. In the short term, and in closing, I'm asking you that in the short term, that PEPCO's going to come back to you. Of course they are. They're going to say, because you denied the bulk of the rate increase, because our stocks are being downgraded, we can't continue with this reliability unless we have more money. I'm asking you to do the right thing. Tell them that they've had 3 strikes and they're out. And in the words of the President, Mr. Graham, the very famous words, you know, you're willing this one time in the short term to give them a mulligan and say, fix it, and fix it soon, but not on the backs of our ratepayers.